Executive Director, Paradigm Initiative, Benga Asheston, to come and give us a short address. Please put your hands together as you walk forward.
Good morning. Thank you for coming, Mr. Commissioner and Mr. Director. The reason why we're doing this is very simple. Trust is at the epicenter of the whole digital ecosystem. Either as law enforcement officers, or as citizens, or as private sector, or as civil society, the one thing that we all need is trust. We need to trust you as law enforcement officers that you will implement the law to catch bad people and protect good people. You need to trust us as citizens that when we do something wrong, we will not be claiming that at that point, police is not my friend. Not only because of the work that you have to do, but also because of some of the conversations that we've been having over the last few years. As Paradigm Initiative, we started in 2007, and the only thing we wanted to do was just train young people so that they can get interested in technology, get good jobs, and not do yahoo yahoo. So I went to this training once. I went to make a presentation, and the police, the EFCC, everybody was there, and I was boasting about, oh, I'm training young people in Nigeria, and some of them used to be cyber criminals, and now they're no longer cyber criminals. And then the gentleman from the EFCC came to meet me after and said, oh, by the way, where are you doing the training? And I was very excited. Oh, EFCC wants to go and visit us. Okay, good. The training is holding in Nigeria, close to Apapa. He said, no problem, we'll come and arrest all of them. And I said, why? They are now good people. He said, well, the law is that if someone has committed a crime, they need to be arrested and punished. But if you are not happy with the law, then change it. Guess what? That was 2008 in Abuja. That was the day our work began to include policy. And we decided, well, the law is to protect, the law is to enable people who do not have opportunities to do the right thing. So we started getting involved in policy, but at some point it was either this versus this. It was security versus rights. But we realized at some point, yes sir, that security and human rights are not enemies. They actually work hand in hand. And that's why we began to do this work, working together with security agencies, with the judiciary, and with all stakeholders, so that we can all sit together around the table and discuss this subject of stemming the tide of abuse in Nigeria's digital space. So it is my pleasure to say thank you to everyone who is here today, to say welcome to you, and I look forward to our conversations as we continue to the training sessions. We will learn from you, you will learn from us, we'll exchange ideas, and at the end of the day, Nigeria will win, our digital space will become better, and we will witness an explosion in a positive way of the digital economy in Nigeria. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll have to bring up the Director, NCCMPS again, to help me to welcome the Commissioner off stage.
On this note, I wish to invite the Commissioner of Police, Lagos State Command, to come and declare this event open. Thank you.
Good morning. Let me start with my constituency, my officers. I have to be partial at times. Knowledge is power, and you cannot give what you do not have. If there's any state in this country that is highly challenged with the issues we are going to discuss there today, I guess it's Lagos State. The world is changing. And if there's any factor that is accentuating or fast-tracking this change, I think it's got to do with the power of ICT and digitalization. The crime texture is also changing, because the digital world has empowered the criminals in a way unprecedented. So any law enforcement agent that is truly committed to dealing with modern dynamics of crime must, out of necessity, not an option, have the capacity to understand the digitalization component of crime. In Lagos, One of the challenges I'm dealing with is that we have officers who are yet to attain that level of intellectual and professional understanding of cybercrime. So what do? We have contact with young boys on the streets. And your understanding of cybercrime is just to check their phones, look at certain companies and say, oh, you are Yahoo Yahoo. And in the course of doing that, you miscarry justice. You are uncivil to them. If you have deep knowledge of how these things work, your approach to addressing it with us will also change. So I want to take it that you're coming here today to host this event. We further that engagement. On this note, I convey the goodwill of the Inspector General of Police. I convey the goodwill of the Lagos State Police family. I wish you a very professionally rewarding engagement, and it remains my honor and privilege to formally declare training open. I wish you the best. Thank you.
What is digital rights? Whenever people talk about digital rights, people say a lot of things. Some people say it's human rights online. Some people say it's internet freedom. And some people say it's a new set of rights. So it depends on how you are looking at it. But I would like to first share what I like to call a textbook definition with us. Digital rights are human and legal rights to access and use digital tools and platforms, including the internet, freely. These rights take different shapes and forms depending on the area and issues relating to them. I like to define digital rights as the integration and deployment of international human rights standards and principles in the use, deployment, and application of existing, emerging, and future digital and internet technologies. So what are the legal bases for digital rights? Constitution. Also, Nigeria is a party to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. That's the regional provision. And also there is, from a global stage, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which Nigeria is also a party to. But what is important is that the ones that are relevant to Nigeria as a country will be those ones that Nigeria is a signatory to, who is entitled to digital rights. Everybody has the right. And I already made the point that it has to be the right of everybody. There are many actors, from individuals to private companies, and of course to government, and of course law enforcement officers too can violate digital rights. One of the contentious issues that have also come up is the issue between privacy and security. Honestly speaking, one of the arguments we make from civil society perspective is also that if the state is not investing enough in addressing some of this infrastructural challenge, we have the responsibility to hold them accountable. What are the frameworks that are linked to digital rights in Nigeria? I think the number one is the Constitution, and some of us will be surprised because the Constitution is also probably the most important, instrument protecting digital rights in Nigeria.
It is our collective duty to combat crime. It is not the duty of one person.
If we have a database of the citizens, it will really help in combating crime.
If we have a standardized data sample every person in this particular country, every person in this country, I think it will really go a long way for we, the security, to understand in accessing and aiding in our own investigation.
Just as with governance generally, the internet is a new space, and so there are new conversations around how to protect the internet, how to govern and manage the internet, and how to make sure things go well. But the interesting thing is that if you do understand the way the internet works, if you understand some of the basic principles of the digital space, your engagement will be very different. It is in everyone's interest that in protecting the internet, in protecting rights, that it is a standard that protects you, protects me, because tomorrow you may not be the one in the room to interpret how this law will be determined. Internet service providers are very different from internet exchange points. Service providers provide access to the internet. Exchange points is where all of the ISPs and everyone else will aggregate so that traffic can flow locally. Of course, one of the problems, by the way, is that when you are brutal in your approach, when you are repressive in your approach, you create an underground. And this is why it's important for us to have this conversation. The internet is a different space entirely. Approach with enforcement, it cannot be by grab. It has to be by cooperation. Because when you do grab approach, what happens is you create a black market of information, and that you cannot control, trust me. Our one approach to it is primarily to make sure that regardless of what the law is trying to do, regardless of the intent of the law, the spirit of the law must respect rights and processes. You create a lot of distrust between yourself and citizens. It pays to understand trends. This, by the way, is the reason why big data is a big deal. Trust is at the center of 21st century law enforcement. And working with people who work to promote rights will help you earn trust. It should be a normal thing for you to receive a courtesy visit from a telecom operator that comes to explain to you how their new upgrade will help you do your work better. Right now, the relationship between businesses and law enforcement is too adversarial. I accept that the way to handle criminals that know more than you is to benefit from their knowledge. How do we make sure that digital laws are not a trap, but a way to engage everyone to do the right thing?
When we talk about digital security, we talk about practice of protecting digital information from unauthorized users. Digital security is very essential, and not just to you as an individual, but to the organizations, institutions, because when one person is affected, it can affect the entire institution or organization. When we talk about digital security threats, they actually differ from individual to organization to institution. They are malicious attacks that could result in loss of damage to computer, software, hardware, data, or information. So what are those threats that you are likely to face as law enforcement officers? One of them at the top of the list is data breaches. Then we have digital evidence integrity. We have mobile device vulnerability, and then we have insider threats. See that insider threats? That's the one that you should be very careful about. You know, when it comes to your work, you deal with lots of sensitive data. So when criminals are coming after you, you're not coming after the money, they're coming after the sensitive data that you keep. And a data breach could result in unauthorized access to this information, leading to potential misuse or compromise of ongoing investigation. Then, mobile device vulnerability, insider threat. You see this particular one? This one is like the deadliest of them all. Then there are various forms of cyber attacks. We're going to be looking at some of them. One of them here, that's at the top of the list, is malware. Another common one is social engineering. Another form of cyber attack is man in the middle. Then another on the list is distributed denial of service. This is the most common type of attack. I know most of us are guilty of this. You want to create a password and you go for the easy one because let me remember. Talking about digital security tips, how do you protect yourself? Is use strong passwords, enable multi-factor authentication, regularly update your software. Virtual private network, VPN, using operating systems, secured operating systems and software. Be cautious of phishing attacks. Another one is use encryption. Then another one is webcam cover. Finally, training and awareness programs. Here are some digital security tools that it's advised that every individual should own. VPN network. Then password managers. Another one on the list is antivirus. Get yourself a digital security toolkit. One last one, password generator. It's essential for individuals, organizations, and government to stay vigilant, especially your area of work. You are going after them, so they want to also come after you.
So by way of introduction, freedom of expression is a fundamental right. I think we all know that. It's a fundamental right that is guaranteed by the Nigerian Constitution, by a number of regional instruments, as well as under international human rights law. So whether you're looking at the national level, at the regional level, or internationally, freedom of expression is a fundamental right that is guaranteed. The existence of this right, of the right to freedom of expression, enables people in any society to exercise and enjoy all other rights. But just to break down the right to freedom of expression, because it has different components, I think if you read our Constitution, you will find it very clearly stated. So it includes the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas. The challenge facing us, especially I would say you, as law enforcement officials, as prosecutors, is how to ensure that our laws and practices are in accordance with regional and international human rights norms and standards. Under our Constitution, Section 39 of the Constitution guarantees to everyone, every person, the right to freedom of expression. Article 9 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights also guarantees to every African in a member state of the African Union the right to freedom of expression. However, I think it's important to stress this. Despite all of these guarantees in all of these different instruments, freedom of expression is not an absolute right.
The digital rights we are talking about is not different really from the offline rights that we have. There are three actors who violate this. They do it: the government, then we have the individuals, then we have the companies who are the intermediaries. So the general principles and preconditions in litigating digital rights, jurisdiction is very, very important. Admissibility, then amicus. This is very important. These are the regional mechanisms. They have the ECOWAS Community Court of Justice. We have the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. We have the African Court on Human and People's Rights, and we have the East African Court of Justice. But the ECOWAS courts have now been the best sub-regional mechanism that says even if you have filed that case, and that case has not been determined, you can still come to ECOWAS court. The measure that you have taken in protecting your legitimate aim that was provided for by law, is it necessary in a democratic society? And if it is necessary in a democratic society, was that measure proportional to the issue that you are trying to take care of? So that is why internet shutdowns can never be justified.
Digital rights are human rights. Now, simply they are rights that are accessible via digital platforms or online platforms. So we have right to expression, right to access information, right to, of course, the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, and of course we have right to privacy. These rights don't just exist on their own. Of course, we have the most important document in the Constitution. We have the Cybercrime Act. Section 45 makes it clear to us that all those rights are not absolute. It is not automatic to do this as it should when you are violating people's rights. The law will have to set the rights on it and look, is this reasonably justifiable in a democratic society? That restriction has to be by law. The essence of criminal punishment is to give citizens notice ahead what conduct or omission will constitute an offense, which one we want. It has to be necessary and proportionate. Section 45 must be resisted. those in public office should not be intolerant of criticism. This is a Nigerian court, not an American court.
There is nothing like global best practices. What is the offense? What are the elements of the offense? In making your decision whether this is a criminal offense, whether you're going to charge, and if you're going to charge, what? And who? Gathering evidence, right? Chain of custody. This speaks to procedural issues, and it also speaks to technical capability. In prosecuting, your starting point really is from your investigators. That is where you win your case, that's where you lose it. In Nigeria, again, structural failure. You have that divide between investigators and prosecutors. Even those organizations, those agencies that actually have investigating units, don't talk to their legal departments. If you are a prosecutor and you do not have evidence in the case you are reviewing, write it down, write the points that you have issues with and send it back. Because it is cybercrime, it does not mean that it is only, you're looking only for electronic evidence. Don't get lost in technicality. And it's not every cybercrime case that involves high technology. You can always consider additional sources of digital evidence. You have open source intelligence.
This body of law has actually come into place as a result of advances in technology. But advances in technology is not the only reason for the emergence of this body of law. Data protection law basically is about the regulation of the processing of personal information. What is personal information? It can be used, or information and data can be used interchangeably. But personal data is defined as any data that relates to or that permits identification of an individual. And the most important concept in data protection law is the concept of personal data or personal information. Data protection law is unique in that it actually requires a statutory law, it requires a special body of law for the purpose of protection. That's why you need independent body to be able to help with the investigation, to be able to help with the prosecution, and so on, to be able to help with the enforcement of data protection law. For you to be able to deal with personal information, you must have a lawful basis, and of course, the commonest lawful basis for dealing with personal information is consent. With regards to minimality, if you are dealing with personal information, you must deal with only that personal information that is relevant for the things that you need to do. With regards to the data quality, we are talking about the fact that whatever data you are using must be accurate. This is the main objective of data, protecting the fundamental right and interest of the data subject.
Cybersecurity basically is everything that you do to defend your systems, your networks. This ranges from education, from putting a password on your computer, access control and management, privileges. The relationship between cybersecurity and cybercrime is that when you have done all of this, somehow, someone still manages to breach your defenses. Cybercrime then steps in, okay, to ensure that you're able to gather the evidence, identify the perpetrator, and prosecute them as well as punish them appropriately. We need to understand the tools we have and where to use them appropriately. As law enforcement, you need to build a cooperation model with stakeholders, particularly private sector. So building relationships is important. When we have difficulties with investigations, joint investigation teams are another tool that you can activate. What it gives you is that it automatically scales up your capabilities in terms of the resources available to you.
Surveillance can actually be carried out in various perspectives. What are the issues? How do they relate? There is no way to effectively police, there is no way to effectively secure the country as it is without electronic surveillance. The kind of threat we have to rule of law in Africa as a continent may not necessarily be the kind of threat that we have to rule of law in other parts of the world. Whenever we're understanding or whenever we're trying to look at rule of law, the challenges to rule of law, then we should also try to start to think of it from the context of our use of technology. Ordinarily, if you want to carry out surveillance, you should carry out surveillance for a well-defined purpose. You don't just indiscriminately monitor somebody. In the context of our discussion of electronic surveillance and the rule of law, you see that even our data protection laws grant you that protection to be able to do what you need to do for law enforcement and for national security purposes. All we just need to do is that, look, the Nigerian police force is collecting information.
Some people want to challenge the system, some want to change it, some want to shake it up. But the generation that I'm speaking about today, they were born to disrupt. They're intuitive learners, and they don't understand us. A scenario where you think they're just consumers of technology, but they're not. We are mostly consumers of technology. This is why their relationship with the state is very different. You think it was Igbo people that voted for Peter? That was a protest by a generation. And it's important to understand this, because when you understand this, you will know how to engage, because otherwise, you will put petrol in the fire. One of the mistakes that we made with NSAS was that we reversed the trust that was building with COVID. They look like criminals on the outside, not because they're criminals, but because they're following popular culture. The future of law enforcement is digital data, and these are the custodians of digital data. We need to work with and not against them. Stereotyping doesn't help them, and it also doesn't help you.
For us at Paradigm Initiative, we are very happy and impressed by the participation of men of the Nigerian police force and other prosecutorial and investigative agencies that are in the room.
The most powerful thing that sounded like a cliche is that the 21st century investigation is no longer gra-gra. It is based on building trust and leveraging on that trust to have mutual assistance. You're assisting the members of the public and they're assisting you in return. And I think that's a very pivotal point.
So it was useful to get a refresher on some cyber hygiene techniques. But for me, what was especially useful was the talk on human rights and freedom of expression. It's a complex topic that needed, in-depth explanation.
The arguments with colleagues on the position of the law as respects to decision in Section 24, concerning Section 24 of the ICC, it has been very engaging and resourceful.
The training has met my expectation because I have more knowledge in the area of data protection, freedom of expression, hate speech, and basically I'm a better person for attending this training.
What I'm really excited about is that I could see that these people genuinely wanted to know. They really needed the education, and that it was like an opening ground for them, and because they really gave their time to understanding. Their feedback was amazing.